She's the founder of Susan G. Komen, the world's largest network of breast cancer survivors and activists. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009, presented by Barack Obama, for her lifetime dedication to service. In 2010, her personal memoir, Promise Me, led her to become a best-selling author. She's been the U.S. Ambassador to Hungary, Goodwill Ambassador for Cancer Control for the United Nations World Health Organization. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Nancy Brinker.
Thank you, Alan. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been to Abu Dhabi several times, and each time I return, I see a more vibrant, wonderful city, and the culture with the Louvre and NYU here now. It's truly awesome, and I thank you for inviting me. I agree with a lot that was said this morning about people not feeling quite as optimistic, with a lot of rhetoric that maybe doesn't make us feel like leadership is intact. However, personally, I have no choice but to be extremely optimistic about everything, because almost 40 years ago, I promised my only sister, Susan, who was 36, as she lay dying from breast cancer, that I would do everything I could, if it took the rest of my life, to make sure that this disease didn't take the lives of young women, of frankly any women or men who develop it. And because I made that promise, it has occupied most of my life, and full of joy, sorrow sometimes, and certainly a lot of happiness in the work that we've been able to do at Susan Komen. Since the time we created the organization, we have raised and funded $3 billion worth of work, almost $1 billion in basic and clinical research, resulting in something like 2,000 grants, funding the work of over 1,200 leading breast cancer scientists today. And I am very excited about research and science. I see, after the presentations we had today, I feel that a lot of our job has been, if not done, it has been shifted to the rest of the world, to the financial markets, to the universities, to the people now who are making huge and significant investments in breast cancer research. And I also feel good that we created this explosion of pink. We now have a color. People know who we are all over the world. And when I finish my remarks today, I'll go through quickly and show you the community we've created in over 60 countries and in 74 cities in the United States. And also, where there's good news, in the United States, we have seen breast cancer mortality decline by the breast cancer death rate declined by almost 40% over the 10 years between 1989 and 2014, 14 years. And we have many more good statistics coming forward. However, 40,000 women are still dying, and men, every year of breast cancer. And it is my belief, my firm belief, that a third to a half of those deaths would be avoided. These people would survive if we only applied what we know, and particularly in areas where we have so many disparities. We find that women of color die more quickly within 5 years, and they are diagnosed more often, 42% of them, with late-stage breast cancers. And this is simply because we are not able to deliver affordable, effective, and accessible care. And it isn't something we don't know. We do know how to do it. We just don't do it. And so I decided, along with my colleagues, about 2 million of them, people who work with us daily, that we would spend the rest of my life, however long that may be, and I hope a good part of theirs, to transferring and putting a lot of capital and a lot of effort into creating systems that would address these problems. So we started where we could. We started thinking small, not big. We started thinking that if we could embrace our communities and we could build navigation for patients in this category, low-resource people who will never oftentimes come forward with their disease, and frankly, unless they have some navigation services, we'll never know where they are and how they died. And then if we addressed other issues like building safety nets in the community, all the way through the continuum of cancer care, delivering patients to where we know the capacity is, doing it ourselves. Because frankly, it looks like in the United States we never will have a healthcare plan, such as is in the UK and other countries, because of the imbalance in the size and the demographics of our states and the huge political divide. So it's incumbent upon our citizens to do it, and we are doing it. And I'm so proud and pumped up today because we just received Kate Watt, who accompanied me here, who is the director of our affiliate in Florida. Soon she will operate the entire state of Florida. We just received a significant grant from a large foundation that we can't talk about, which is killing me, to execute the work that we know how to do. We will create a community network, and it looks like this. We'll have embedded community navigators who are culturally appropriate, meeting, greeting, and finding patients with issues. They will deliver them to the appropriate care. They will have follow-up, and they will have what they need, including hand-holding and payment issues met, and compassionate care with them at all times. And then the second barrier that we'll address in a significant way is transportation. Because we know these kinds of patients don't come to us. They're not coming to the hospital. We need to go to them. So we will have a combination of service vans. We will become our own service project. And I can't tell you how excited I am about it. Because as I struggled with what next, when I began to see the explosion of science and all of the things that you heard today that are coming, that are realities, and that patients that are well-funded and have access to care will have. The sorrow in my heart lies with those who don't have it, and it is worldwide. We have operated in over 60 countries. We've done meetings, including right here. We've done outreach. We've done programs in so many places and so many good stories. It's hard for me to describe, and we will keep doing that. But in the meantime, we're going to start our projects. Think small in our communities. We're going to deliver some of this care in living rooms, not in waiting rooms. And we are going to keep the cleanest, best data that we can. And we've gotten very good at that over all these years. And we are going to teach and reach anyone who wants to work with us so that we can get to the place, to the promise I made, and to the promise that over millions and millions of people who work with us every day have made to the people they love. So I wanted to kind of show you where we work around the world and how we work, and you'll see what I mean. So, oops, there we go. Well, there is my sister and me. Actually, one of the last pictures we ever had together. And there is a convening that we do. This is called a Race for the Cure. And we have had many, many, many races. The largest race we now have is in Rome. 70,000 people run around the town. You can imagine how popular that is. Everything's closed down. Rima, you know how that. And then it starts with leadership. President Bush and Laura Bush, very close friends of mine. I served in his administration. Here we were in Saudi Arabia. Angela Merkel, President Sarkozy. Here we were a few years ago with you and doing a wonderful session. Here we were in Jordan with our colleagues there. And then we went to Egypt. And Egypt has significant low resource problems, but we've been able to very slowly and effectively, again, help them change some of that step by step. That was a difficult picture to get, to light it pink. It took an act of Congress or Parliament or whatever. Here we are in Africa. I was meeting with cervical cancer patients. Some of them had arrived to the one cancer center in Tanzania, riding a donkey, thousands of kilometers, too late for any care to work. But nonetheless, when we showed up, they knew what the pink ribbon meant, and we were at least able to give them hope and hope for their future. And then there was a summit, a First Ladies Summit, which we all participated in. And then we went to India. And we have had a wonderful program there in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health. And we had a many great meetings in Mumbai with Tata Memorial. And here we are in Brazil, in Barretos, outside of Sao Paulo, with one of the largest pink vans we've ever seen that was headed to the mouth of the Amazon with our support to make sure that people there had care. And then here I am, you can see my time is up, in Budapest, where I served as an ambassador. And we walked across the bridge, which we had lit pink. And we started a movement there. And it continues to go on every year. Finally, our White House turned pink. Laura Bush did that. And every year it's turned pink at Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it's a powerful message to people in our country. And now I hope this new model we are building will be a powerful message and a powerful way we can continue to partner with all of you. Thank you.
Well, it's phenomenal work. And I want to probe a few things. Let's start with your notion that half of the cancers are avoidable if we just delivered the right care. That's a profound statement. You talked about some barriers. You talked about transportation, culturally appropriate care. Give us a sense, and I'm sure you described that in the context of your work in the US, but then you gave us a global picture where the barriers must be quite different. So talk about the barriers to
the barriers are different. I mean, the income levels are obviously, we can't compare our situation with what might happen in countries that are very low income countries or very uneven distribution of wealth and poverty. But actually, Alan, the situation's always the same. For example, we were in what they call the slums. I think they're very humble housing in some cases in Mumbai, outside of where Slumdog Millionaire the movie was made. And I spent about 2 days there, and we have an NIH program. And there, they have a navigator in many, many parts. For every 400 women, there's the village mother who greets them. She has a partnership with the NIH. She's a navigator, and they meet, and she's able to bring people for early care. Largely there, the focus is on cervical cancer, because breast cancer is very hard to get to there and in many low-resource countries in Africa, particularly Indonesia and some places. But honestly, the community model works everywhere. It takes people who care, and care enough, almost a lending tree concept, if you know what that is, to find capacity and to match the capacity with the patients who need the care. And we've done it for so long. We've seen immeasurable progress. And I'm absolutely convinced that over the next 5 to 7 years, we really could see a dramatic increase in survival rates if we did this. And when we were talking earlier about value-based philanthropy and value-based work, NGO work, this is the kind of work that we're talking about.
And that model is a global model.
It's a global model. And it requires people of the culture to do it. And I know people in this room who live here know people who have very low resource conditions in their homes and their lives. And it isn't just that, it's the shame of the disease. It's the fear of the disease. It's how will I be treated by my husband? How will my family accept me? In some countries, a woman loses her dowry when she has a disease like that, thinking she becomes worthless. But you know what? Even women in small communities and big cities in America feel the same way. So these are not things unknown to us. But we do know that in this case, high touch brought from high tech works. It works over and over and over again.
So in more resource countries where the touch can bring people into clinical care, we just heard a presentation, and it's of exceptional care. But most people receive their care at the community hospital from the oncologist who is referred to by their primary care physician. Not all of it is exceptional care. So how do we improve the clinical models for people who do enter care?
I think that the conversation about clinical trials is very, very important. And let me just add another opinion to this. I spent a lot of last year traveling in South America because I was very concerned. I had heard, and it was verified to me, that some of the therapeutics we've developed from global pharmaceutical companies are not working in places like particularly where they're indigenous Hispanic populations, because there weren't enough people entered in the trial to understand, did they work? And in some cases, they don't. So there, the bond of trust is broken. Then they create their own generics with which they have data or say they do, but they don't share it with us. So there's a breakdown all the way that can happen, and that is deadly for a patient anywhere. So we are depending on the wisdom and the practice of good clinicians and good clinical trials and good, clean data to make sure that what we are doing and offering to even the lowest resource patient is the right thing. And my hope is, and I know this will happen, we will start getting the kind of data that will tell us how to treat an individual with whatever cultural issues they have, genetic issues they have, and other diseases they may have developed.
You mentioned disparities by particularly race and ethnicity. You're in Florida, a home of many of those disparities. Talk about how that plays out in your approach.
That really all came at one time. I thought about what we needed to do, and also with the Puerto Ricans moving in. That really jump-started us in Florida. We have 239,000 Puerto Ricans who've moved into our state. They are not migrants. They are our citizens, and we're proud to have them. But the problem is many of them came with no care, no resources, interrupted care, or they had a total lack of familiarity, even though they had familial, connections to come. So we are very busy now. Kate Watt is very busy making sure that we are reaching out to as many of them as we can to make sure they know they have care or they can have care, and we will bring them into the system. But these disasters also, at the same time, Alan, and a good point, take away from resources we have for other kind of care, Medicaid and things in our state. So it's, storms are very expensive. And this one was huge. These 2 or 3 we had were huge.
So I'm very curious about your personal evolution in the focus of your tremendous organization, which, for those of us who weren't intimately familiar with it, think of it as very much investing on the research side. Right. And here you come, and you have the opportunity of the room, and instead of presenting about the leading edge of research, you're presenting about communities and cultural competency and navigation of systems. That's a fundamental reorientation of a tremendous organization.
Well, thank you.
Lead us along that evolutionary path.
I say I'm not, thank heavens, CEO, or, I'm the founder and oftentimes called a visionary who's 5 years too far ahead, but I too am a breast cancer survivor. I had the disease, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I had everything in the world at my fingertips to make sure everything went well. So all I can say is that it's the next step that has to happen. I have no concerns about research anymore. I know when the researchers hear me, they go, oh my God, we don't have enough money. Yes, you do, and yes, you will. And, I look, just one quick example. Look at polio in the 40s and the 50s, and I was raised in that time, and it was the most deadliest disease that children ever knew in the United States. Our parents wouldn't let us go swimming in pools. The day the vaccine was announced in 1955, I can remember the church bells rung in my hometown of Peoria. The church bells rang. People were crying, all of us. We thought the disease had been cured, only to understand that that was just the beginning of the cure of polio. And actually, we still haven't completed, but we had to first have the systems and understand how to make sure everyone had the vaccine.
In the US in particular, the financial models make that very difficult. Again, in the previous panel, we heard about resource allocation within one delivery system. So how do you convince others? When you said we have plenty for research, I can imagine the reception you got.
Yeah.
How do you convince others of the need for this shift?
I don't feel I have to, because most people look at me and they know I'm a truth teller. I'm not telling something that I don't believe. And when you have people like Mike Milken, who's done such a wonderful job when you have Joe Biden, when you have figures like we do all over the world, you have all these leaders who freely now talk about cancer and the need, and there's a competition going on between countries. It doesn't get better than that. I know in the United States, everyone's whining and concerned right now about funding. But you know, with success and good trials and with the kind of data we're coming, where we're spending our money more wisely, where we heard a story earlier about therapeutics that work for a month and a half, an extra month and a half. We know that's not good medicine. And we know, Alan, when that goes by, that frees up dollars. And all I can say is I feel good about that right now. 20 years ago, I didn't feel good. In the 90s, I felt terrible about research. We just never had anything good to announce. It was really meaningful. This is meaningful, what you heard today. And having this wonderful hospital here in Abu Dhabi, prepared to deliver trials. I mean, this is amazing to me. So that's not what I need to worry about right now, or what most of us in the philanthropic world need to worry about. We do, but we need to change and build systems, because we can't rely on I don't mean to say this, on our governments to do it. It has to come from inspiration and touching people and know what's right to do and what isn't right to do.
So last question for me, similar to what I asked, and then we'll turn to the audience. You just mentioned the role of government. In private philanthropy has been a force for forcing different models of discovery in science and moving away from some of the very centralized NIH-driven work. Comment on that if you would.
And technology. Now just think about the patients, we are the patient center. Think about the mobile device that almost everyone in the world, even low-resource countries, is going to have. And then the data they're going to have, be able to just pop in their age and maybe takes a simple blood test which will be read immediately. These things are amazing, but the same thing will occur in community health. You'll have a device that you can reach a navigator, a low-level community health worker. There will be more ways of transport. Look what Uber has already revolutionized patient transport. We use Uber rides for some of our patients that live near the Everglades that have almost no resources to pick them up and bring them to treatment and care. So what's happening around us between technology and science is astonishing to me.
Wonderful. Well, it's a unique opportunity for you in the room, so please.
And Kate Watt is here. If any of you want to really know about community health, I am just a novice at it. But this young woman, and please don't try to hire her. If you do, I will never forgive you. You can't. But she's leading this effort in Florida, and she's going to make it. It's just, I can't tell you how excited I am.